Hi, I'm Aimee Cross, and today I want to talk to you about trying to extend your family tree in the 1700s and early 1800s. I'm a professional genealogist and I have a lot of experience in doing these types of projects. They're the bread and butter of what I do. Because a lot of people, when they hit 1850, which is the last known census, where family members are delineated in a family by name, they kind of don't know what to do after that. So this video is going to outline for you best strategies for building your family in the early 1800s or the 1700s. And I really think that this is going to make a difference for you. Now, this isn't every step that I take. This doesn't have everything. I can't put it all into a video. But it does have the first steps that I take. And then if those are unsuccessful, then I start diving into some other records, and I'll kind of talk to you about that at the end of the video. Now, I do want to let you know that I do have a handout for this, so that if you're interested in that handout, you can go into the video description here at the bottom of the video, and you can order that if you would like. And if you are one of Aimee's crew, if you're a paid YouTube subscriber as part of Aimee's crew, you'll get that handout for free. So let's dive in. So I'm using red and yellow to rev you up, to give you the energy and strength that you need to find this family and to feel motivated, to feel like you can do it, because you really can. You don't need to hire a professional genealogist to do this in many instances, and you can do it yourself. All right, so here's an outline of the different steps that I take initially as I'm attacking one of these projects. And I'm gonna go into each step in more detail, but let me outline them here for you first. 1, set a reasonable research goal. 2, put your information into a timeline and then work to determine your subject's county of birth and or their county of marriage. Because the reality is, in the United States, these records are usually held on a county level. Not always, but often. 4, obtain all your marriage records. Sometimes you think you have them all and you may not. So you want to obtain all your marriage records. 5, you're going to then perform a census evaluation. And then 6, you're going to create family groups based on that census evaluation. 7, you're going to examine probate records, and 8, you're going to examine deeds. And then we're going to kind of see where we're at. All right. So this is how we're going to start. Let's go into these each in a little bit more detail. So the first step, your research goals. A solid research goal is really important. You want to create a research goal that doesn't bite off more than you can chew. And you want to have a research goal so that you don't go down all of these other avenues that have really nothing to do with what you're trying to solve. In this type of research, you got to stay focused. So you don't want to squirrel. You want to keep it straight, okay? And you need a solid research goal to do that. A lot of people kind of get intimidated by that and just kind of feel like it's unnecessary. But when you're doing this type of research, you just really have to stay focused. So you want a research goal that's specific and not too broad. A lot of times I have people that ask me to do a project for them that is really broad. And in this time period, I can't do that. I'm going to be wasting their money. I need to focus on one thing, and then I need to try to do that for that individual. And so it might be something like, I want to find the parents of John Doe, and then I'm going to specify what John Doe I'm talking about, who was born in 1788 and died in 1855. That's a great research question. You could even be more specific and say, I want to find the parents, or I want to find just the father of John Doe, who was born in 1788 and died in 1855 and resided in Albemarle County, Virginia. That's a great research goal. So that's the first thing that you want to do. The second thing that you want to do is you want to put the information into a timeline. And the reason that this is so important is timelines help you recognize mistakes that you may have made. And they kind of help your brain think through what was happening and where they lived. Because where they lived is so important right now. And Virginia won't cut it, okay? You've got to drill it down into a smaller place. Otherwise, it's way too much to bite off. So put your information in a timeline. Now, programs like Ancestry kind of naturally create a timeline for you. You can create your own, even more detailed timeline if you want to. It's really kind of whatever floats your boat, whatever works for you. I have done a separate video on timelines, and I actually have a handout about timelines. So if that's something that interests you, you can look at that. I put a link to it right above. The other thing that I want you to do is include the siblings if they are known of the individual in question. Maybe you know the siblings and you don't know their parents and you think that's dumb. That would be impossible. If I know the siblings, I'm going to know the parent. But that isn't always the case. Sometimes siblings are known through family information, Bibles, things like that. And you want to put any information that you have about anybody that you know that was part of your family into this so that you can kind of knit this family together and know all you can about them. And what you're really looking for is their earliest known residence, okay? That's a big part of this timeline. And sometimes that information will come from an earlier marriage record. Sometimes it may come from a death certificate or a death record. Sometimes it may come from family lore. And that is kind of something that we have to be a little careful of. But if that's all you've got, you got to look at it. And then other times it may come from a family Bible, which is a great thing to have. So in this instance, I have Mary Ann Milloway's exact date of birth. And I have that from my family Bible, but I only know that she was born in Virginia. So I have to go to her marriage. So that's the first known place where I kind of have a record of knowing exactly what county she came from. And so that's going to be my starting place if I were trying to identify her parents. And it's what I used to identify her parents. Now, the one thing that I will tell you is that you want to expand a little bit more than just that county, because sometimes people lived maybe nearby another county and it was actually a shorter distance to go to the other county to get the marriage license than it was to go to their own county courthouse. And you might want to be paying attention to rivers and mountains that lied between where your family lived, if you know more specifically where they lived and where that courthouse was. So those are the types of things that you want to be keeping in mind. Like I said, this isn't easy, but it's doable. Now, marriage records. And I'm using marriage records plurally because there are almost always more than one record. They may not have all survived, but there were many records that were created. And I want to show you an example of this. Okay, this is a pretty cool example. Okay, so this first record is a statement made by a pastor who said that he married all of these individuals in the last little over a year, okay? And that's just really common. And they'd go and they'd report this to the county clerk. Another reason why you sometimes want to look at the surrounding counties as well. So that's one record, and that's great. I have William O. Harris married Mary Ann Milloway on November 9th, 1837. Great. You know, and I know that this record came from Albemarle County. So I have that record. I have their marriage record, right? No, you want to keep looking. So I dug around a little more and I found additional records for Mary Ann Milloway. I found their marriage bond. Now, a marriage bond is a common marriage record in this time period. What it was two individuals would post a bond, and it usually was a significant amount of money, stating that they wanted to, that this man and this woman wanted to be married. And basically what they were doing were saying that they both had the right to be married. They weren't previously married. They weren't trying to do something illegal. And it gave people the opportunity to refute the fact that this couple could be married. But people that were willing to put up some hard money, and a lot of these bonds were for, like this one is for $150. In 1837, $150, that's a lot of money, right? So the people that are going to be posting this bond, they have a vested interest in this, and they're not going to post the bond without some assurances that this is what should be done. And so oftentimes the people that posted the bond were the groom and then somebody from the bride's family. And in this instance, we have William O. Harris, the groom, posted the bond along with Garrett C. Mahanis. So I have a bond. Is that all that I need? No, there's more. And in this instance, I want to show you why it's so important to look at all pages of a record. If this came up on I'm looking at microfilm and this came up on my microfilm, oh cool, I got it. No. I want you to look at the pages before and after it, okay? Because there's always more than one record. For instance, this was the page before. So this was actually the back of that page. This was at the beginning. And so then I have the bond, and there's actually a clue at the bottom of the bond, but sometimes that clue isn't there. So just if you don't see something like that, doesn't mean it's not going to be there. But it says here that there was an affidavit made by Isaac Milloway. Check this out. So I have this affidavit, and what do I see? I see a statement that was signed by witnesses that Isaac Milloway and Judith Milloway gave permission for their daughter, who was not a legal adult, to marry. Oh my gosh. Not only did I find her father, I found her mother, okay, with just that document. A record like this is just gold. Always, 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 always look at images around an image. You never know what you're going to find. But life isn't usually this easy, all right? Normally, you don't find a record in the marriage record that gives you the name of the parents. It's great if it happens, but it doesn't usually happen. So our next step is a census evaluation. Now, a census evaluation involves going in and finding all of the individuals that lived in a particular place by a surname. And in this instance, when you're doing the search, less is more. I always start with the clean census search. Let me show you how I do it. If I'm doing it in Ancestry, which is where I perform my census evaluations, I don't know, it just works better for me, but you can do it in any of the websites that you're involved with. I go up to the top and I go to search. I go to a census and voter list search, and then this screen comes up. And all I'm going to put in here is Milloway in Albemarle County, Virginia. See the little checkbox below? I want to stick to that exact county and adjacent counties. I'm not putting in first names. I'm not trying to get tricky. I want to see everybody that lived in that county by that name. Now, if you have a really common name like Smith, it's going to be a lot harder, and you may need to kind of change up your strategies. But in many, many instances, especially during this time frame, this works. It's been very, very rare that it's been more than I could handle. So then I have a results page, and often I'm going to have a lot of results, but that's because I'm looking at all census records. And I don't want all census records. I know Mary Ann Milloway married in 1837. So her family maybe lived there in 1830 or 1840. Now, she wouldn't have been in the household in 1840. She would have been in the household of her husband. Probably, right? But so I want to look at all the Milloways that resided in that county in 1830. And if your marriage was closer to the census, like in 1831 or 1832, that's even better, okay? So when I do the census search, I use those filters there on the left on Ancestry, and every website has filter places, so just find them, okay? But I use those filters and I go to 1830, and I just select the 1830 census. Then I'll make a list of all of the individuals that resided in 1830 that had a child that was of the appropriate age to be married, if I have a lot of results, okay? And I want to maybe be a little loosey-goosey with this because ages aren't perfect in census records. So you don't want to be so rigid that you avoid looking at somebody that might be really helpful to you. I then take that information and I kind of mind map or create family groups. And you can do it however it works for you. Now, I've got a couple examples here. I have like a mind map thing where you're looking at all of these different things. Personally, for me, it's too messy. It's too much. My brain can't process it. I want to see things more linearly. So I will then start making family groups, and I'm going to look at them over various censuses. Now, this is a table that I created for a different family, but this is an example. So I found them in 1830, and I kind of wanted to see what happened with this family over a period of time. So I found them in all of these different census records. Maybe I would look in 1810, maybe I would look in 1820, but I want to kind of work out this family. And then I will start naming the individuals in the family as I find other records. Like this is a good example of this. So I have Gilbert that was born in Massachusetts, and Eliza, his presumed wife, who was born in Connecticut. And then I have some unknown males and females that were found in that census record. And I keep track of them and their ages at that time. But then if you see that I have Franklin, who was born in New York, who was under 5 in 1830, and he wasn't named. And he was between 10 and 14 years of age in 1840. But then later on, he's with the family in 1850. And so now I have his name or his probable name. And then I can kind of work to name the other children. Now, maybe I'll name the other children through some of the other records that I'm going to talk about in a minute. But this helps me start ruling out families. This helps me look at families. And if I can name all of their children and my person that I'm looking for isn't in there, then I know that most likely my person wasn't the daughter of this man. Do you see what I'm talking about? I'm starting to pull all of this together. And sometimes the way that I do this is I'll create kind of a fake ancestry family. Like in this instance, I created just a plain old Cheney, all right? I don't have any information for this Cheney. I don't really care. And this is best done in an ancestry tree that maybe is private, or I'll add a tag to them that this is a hypothesis, and maybe I'll even put in notes in there that I'm just researching. The other thing that you can do is do a floating tree, and there's videos on how to do a floating tree. But let me give you a little bit more example of what I do here. So let's say I know this Francis Marion Cheney. He's the person that I know who it is. He's the guy that I'm trying to determine his parents. And I'm running into these other people that may be related to him or may not. And so I've put them in as possible children of this plain old Cheney. And one of them was born in 1781. Is he really a brother of Francis Marion, that Francis S. Cheney? No, he's not. I'm just putting him in there to keep track of him and to give Ancestry hints and opportunity to maybe turn up some records that might make my life a little easier. But by doing my census evaluation, I know for sure who resided in that county. So once you've kind of done this, you've done your census evaluation, you've taken a look at your different groups, you've either put them into a floating tree or you've put them in as fake siblings of the person that you're researching, or however you want to organize it, I'm starting to dive into record groups. Now, what are some of the important record groups during this time period? We already talked about the fact that we don't have census records that name other family members. So what are some of the other things that you can look at that might identify your family members that you care about? Probate records. Probate records are the best, okay? And probate records oftentimes name family members, especially wills, right? They identify the people that somebody wants to bequeath their estate to. Great, yay, you find somebody in a will. Woohoo! One, do you know where to find the wills, okay? And I have a whole separate video about that. I'll show you a slide on that in a minute. But I want to explain a couple things about probate records, okay? This is a little probate 101, all right? We have intestate and testate. Testate means they had a will. Intestate means they didn't have a will. And a lot of people think if they died intestate, they didn't have a will, there's nothing to find and it's all over. Wrong! There's a lot more that you can find, and you need to know how to look for those intestate records. So those records can include guardianship records. They can include an appointment of an executor, and often the executor is a family member or a close friend. They might include the sale record. It include inventory of everything that person owned, as well as the people that purchased it, because it didn't work like it did now. They inventoried everything, and then the family basically kind of had to buy back the stuff. So I know it's kind of weird, but it's how it worked. And you need to understand that. So the people that attended and purchased the items from the estate either lived very close and were friends, part of your fan club, or they were family members. So those records can provide information. And then after all of that's said and done, the money that was accrued from the estate is then given to the beneficiaries. And sometimes there's record of that, and you want to know who those beneficiaries are. And you also want to know about what the laws were at the time and how the laws dictated who the beneficiaries were. Because remember, this is intestate, meaning they didn't have a will that set out that they wanted their property to go to so and so and so, okay? So this is all things that you want to be paying attention to. Now, when I'm looking for probate records, I like Family Search, okay? You can find some of them on Ancestry, and Ancestry has been adding to their probate collection. They do have some probate records that aren't on Family Search, but actually a lot of their probate records are actually from Family Search. So I start on Family Search and then I check out Ancestry too. But on Family Search, I want to go up here to the search at the top on the left and then go to catalog. And I want to put in that we're in the United States, in the state of Virginia, in Albemarle County. Once I select that, I see all of the records that Family Search has for that county. Boy, this is a gold mine. If you don't know how to do this already, you want to know how to do this. And then I'm going to focus specifically on probate records. You'll see those at the bottom, right there. You might also want to check out those guardianship records. That means that the person had children that were minors at the time of their death and somebody had to be appointed guardian. Newsflash, legal age may have been 21 years old. So you might have somebody that was 20 years old when their father died and there may be guardianship records for them. Another newsflash. If the mom was alive, they still probably had guardianship records. And the reason being is that women didn't have really any rights, period, but a male needed to be appointed to guardian. Another news flash, oftentimes, if the woman was alive, the guardian may have been her brother or her father. May have been somebody related to her that stepped in and became guardian if this man died intestate and did not specify a guardian in his will. So look at all of these ways we can find connections to the family, okay? So here's an example of will records in Vermilion County, Indiana. Now I want to point out something to you. If you see the little lock at the bottom, right there, that means that you need to go to a local family history library to view that document. Your local library may be an affiliate library as well. And the reason that it's locked is because the Family Search's agreement with whomever they got the records from prohibits them from putting it out there publicly for everybody. Now, I know this is a lot and you're probably like, oh, feeling kind of a little bit crazy if you're not familiar with probate records. And I want to direct you to a video that I did a while ago on probate research. This video kind of outlines different steps for finding probate records and kind of how to go about it in a little bit more detail. So check that video out. My second favorite type of records to determine family members and my first initial steps of doing a research project like this are deed records. They are so underestimated, okay? People think I don't care about deed records. I am shocked at how many intermediate genealogists that have had some experience, that really have done some solid genealogy, don't know anything about deed records. So let me tell you how these work. Deed records were created when land was transferred. And there's a couple of things that can be in a deed record. One, a deed record can identify, and most deed records do, the county where the individuals that are involved in the deed reside, both the grantee, the person that is purchasing the land, and the grantor, the person that is selling the land. It'll note that where they live. This can give you patterns of movement, and it can clue you in to another place. Sometimes you might see somebody that received land for $1. And the relationship may be specified, or they may say, due to my love and affection for so-and-so. Another thing to be aware of in deed records, if you're searching in a slave-owning state, if you're in that time period where there may be enslaved individuals, they may be found in deeds as well. Sometimes you'll find a deed for a daughter who got married, and her father, as kind of a marriage gift, gave her some of the enslaved individuals that he owned. And it may specify that she's his daughter. So this is like crazy stuff, but it solved more things than you might suspect. And then finally, like we kind of talked about before, in most of these states in this time period, women couldn't own property once they were married. So you want to be checking both maiden names, if you know it, and married names. Here's a great example of a deed. This is actually a deed from Thomas Jefferson, President Thomas Jefferson. It's in the second line there, in consideration of affection to my grandson, Thomas Jefferson Randolph. I've just identified a relationship through a deed. Here's another. This indenture made the 8th day of May in the year of our Lord 1815 between George Fry and Mary his wife of the one part. So another thing that a deed can do is it can identify the spouse, which in this time period can be super difficult to do. You may have identified the father of an individual, but you can't find the name of his wife. You might find it through a deed. Here's another one. between Jacob Fry and Elizabeth, his wife, late Elizabeth Rudabaugh. That tells you her maiden name. Maybe you didn't know it before, and it was through a deed. This deed also specifies that he is disposing of 1 equal undivided 7th part of the whole of this property. That's a sign to you that this was inherited. So she and 6 other siblings or other beneficiaries received this land, and her husband Jacob is selling her interest in the land. And it gets even better. On the next page, it identifies this land that had been conveyed to Christian Rudabaugh, late deceased, one of whose children and heirs at law is the said Elizabeth. Now, deeds and actually sometimes finding deeds can be kind of complicated. The indexes for finding deeds vary greatly. One county does it this way, one county does it a different way, and some of these indexes are kind of nuts. So this video will tell you all about the ways that you can dive into deeds, okay? So you want to check that one out. Now, I obviously love this stuff. I actually really like solving a mystery through an unexpected record. And it's like gold. When you find it, it's just like, oh, party. It's so exciting. And this is actually really fun research to do. So once you learn the techniques on how to do it, you're going to be addicted. So this is my first step. These are the things that I do first. Now, if I strike out here and I need to dig deeper, there's all kinds of places that you can go. You can go to local county historical societies or genealogical societies for records. You want to look into more of those records that we saw in the Family Search catalog, and that can include tax records, vital records. You want to look at city records. Sometimes cities kept vital records. And so even, before the time of birth certificates or death certificates. So you want to be kind of dotting all your I's and crossing off your T's. You want to look for cemetery records if they exist. You want to be looking for church records. You want to look for marriage, births, christenings, death records, burial records. Those all can be held on church levels. There's so many different types of records that can help you solve your problems if you've not found the answers that you need in these records. And again, like I mentioned before, you want to be building all of these families. So you're going to know all of the individuals that resided in this county during this time period by the surname that you're researching. And you're going to be the expert on the Milloway family or the Smith family or whatever family that you're researching. You want to be able to break them into family groups and know all about them, okay? That's going to help you do exhaustive research, and that's what you want to be doing. You want to be doing reasonably exhaustive research, which means trying to find all of the records that you can. Can you find everything? Probably not. And maybe it's going to take a visit to the location, but at least you have a starting point, and at least then if you visit the location, you know all of the specifics about the families that resided there, and as you're encountering further information, you can put it in its proper place. Now, again, like I mentioned before, I do have a handout for this video that goes into some of this into a little bit more detail and kind of gives you like everything that we've talked about so that you don't have to try to take copious notes. It is available for Aimee's Crew YouTube members, and you can also get it on my Etsy page, and the link to that is down below in the description. So I hope this has helped. If you've had success and if you found the answers that you're looking for in an obscure record, put it in the comments, share it with everybody else. If this video helps you out, please tell us about it. Tell us about what you discovered. And if this has been helpful to you, please give it a like so that other people know this content was valuable in helping you become a better genealogist. I hope you have a great day, and I really hope, like I said, this is really helpful for you.